What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
Shredlord.
Jammin Jon.
And we have an album review for you. So another one that was on our list for the 9th of April was the debut full-length from Jackson, Michigan's Throne, Pestilent Dawn. This comes out on Redefining Darkness Records. Again, this is their debut album. They formed in 2015 in Jackson, Michigan. They have one other EP, which actually I bought because we actually saw them not too long ago. Actually, well, no, it was pretty long ago.
It's been a while, yeah.
And it feels like it was just yesterday there were shows, but there wasn't. It wasn't.
No, it's been a long time. We saw them with, what, Two Mold?
And Superstition.
Yeah.
Solid show.
Oh, and Mutilator.
Mutilator was there too, also on Redefining Darkness. Good band. Now, this band actually includes current and former members of the bands Jesus Wept and Winterus, both of which I'm pretty familiar with. And this is, I don't know, like, all right, originally I would say these guys were an interesting combination of like modern death metal, brutal death metal, and touches of melodic death metal. This is a bit of a shift. This is a lot more towards the brutal death metal side. Now, the intro track, simply called Intro, definitely gives you a sample size of how big the production is, especially compared to the EP. This thing is chunky.
The intro is a fucking death march.
Dude.
Yes.
And it features some of the more slower moments you'll find on this album, but not many. This is fiercely heavy, brutal death. The drums are flying on this.
Yes.
There's some insane drum work on
now
this.
Now, they're triggered to the nines.
Definitely.
Unfortunately. I don't like really overly triggered drums, I'm going to be honest.
Same here.
But the drummer's a goddamn madman.
Dude, the turnovers are absolutely nuts. And, I mean, I was making comparisons to Aborted, Hideous Divinity, and Hour of Penance almost immediately. It's that sort of like quick, non-stop drumming. The double bass is constantly flying on this. And the guitar tone is just chunkified. Like it is.
Yeah, it's the guitar. The rhythm guitar tone's pretty nasty.
Campbell chunky soup.
Yeah, very like dying fetus chunkage. It's just brutal. And this pretty much curtails right into the opening track. Amongst the sinners, they come forth. And yeah, I mean, you're greeted to pretty much a larger dose of the sound with a nice, cool dynamic with the vocals going high to low. Like you have really low, not quite like brutal death gurgles, but they're kind of, I don't know, like just low death metal vocals.
I mean, Barry White. Little Barry White.
Well, oh, baby. Like that. You want Arby's. Who doesn't want Arby's?
I mean, really, throughout the record, it's like Frank Mullen meets Trevor Strand from...
It's a duet. It really is. And like even the intonation in their voices, like when he goes up high, he has that kind of Trevor shriek. And then the low ones are kind of ultra raspy and sound a lot like Frank. And when it comes down to the music, it is a bullet train to Blastville. This is a fast, brutal release. And that was the thing that kind of caught me off guard. They were fast before, but there was a lot more melody, I would say.
Yeah, that's what I kept telling Nick. Like, I remember when we saw them, I remember them being different. Like, they destroyed live. I remember that.
They killed.
This was just something different.
Yeah.
And when he says speed, we're talking like Vader speed.
Yeah.
Throughout a majority of this album.
Except, again, like more brutal death. Like when I think of Vader, I think of like that sort of thrash and death hybrid. This is definitely more focused on brutal death in terms of like just like the riff structure and the overall feel of it. In terms of breaks from this style, though, there aren't that many, but they do include some really cool blackened moments on here. And They Shall Weep and the title track, Pestilent Dawn, both have really cool black metal moments or like just slight blackened death tags. Definitely reminded me a lot of like Belphegor, except Belphegor switching on and off with suffocation.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because like there are sections on here where it will go from like a blackened tremolo to just a syncopated triplet chug and like, well, it's definitely no, that's Belphegor. No. Then they're really not like meeting the two in the middle. It's just pretty much like, no, just kind of balance this out.
So as most of this album was pretty straightforward as far as style goes, there were some surprises in here. And one of them definitely was Eternity in Mourning, which to me was like a beautiful Spanish beach walk.
Porque Maria.
Donde el parque?
It definitely hit me out of nowhere. Where the hell did this track come from? But it was a one guitar kind of
acoustic
El Mariachi,
De caca el gato. Es en mi pantalones.
Mis pantalones es en fuego con amor para ti.
People walking in white, billowing shirts on a beach. And then, like, a logo pops in the corner for a brand of douche you won't buy.
Like,
It was interesting.
I wish I'd paid more attention in Spanish class, because I could have just said a bunch of sultry things. And
Hey, John.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
¿Me quieres? ¿Me quieres, mi amor?
Nay. No.
Hey,
No is universal.
No is universal.
¿quieres mi pito?
No.
¿Por qué, Jammin Jon?
And to all our Spanish-speaking followers,
What up?
well, we just had some fun with them.
Mi duro es firme. It does eventually pick back up. However, the track Born of Death, the intro riff may be one of my favorite riffs on the whole album, and it set itself up with some really nice groove, and I thought it was taken away a little too soon.
Yeah. These guys are in
This
a hurry
song
to
is
blast.
way too short. I think Born of Death, for the most part, had the most groove in this album that this album had. Reminded me of Behemoth, like, a lot. The verse has this suffocation chug to it, and the breakdown could have been way more nasty, but the song was, they just cut it off too soon.
And the track All Creations Wept kind of had another really good potential groove, and it was kind of cut way too short again.
There was a syncopated little chug bit it was a really clever breakdown. I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
And it was different than anything else that was on the album, but it came towards the end of the track and it started fading out on that. And, you know, some of these ideas kind of get, like, mishmashed and kind of collide together, and they kind of want to fit as many big, heavy moments in one song, you know, without letting some of them breathe. And this album definitely could have used some groove. One of my big gripes on here, though, involves our beloved interlude that we had fun speaking Spanish to, and the fact that there's also an intro and an outro. Humanity's Dusk, which it doesn't belong on there. It's literally zombies groaning, moaning, puking, maybe
Yep.
nutting,
Yep.
Definitely nutting.
and someone like holding a mic really close to a Jacob's ladder in science class.
Yeah.
It doesn't add anything, and honestly, with that and the interlude and the intro, that could have been another song, and it just seems like it was done to pad out the length, because this is only about a little over 30 minutes. So it's almost kind of a bloated EP versus like a full length. It doesn't feel long enough to be a full length, especially with the intros and interludes in there.
What's
But-
crazy is maybe it could have been had they let some moments breathe a little bit more.
Yeah, because the songs feel kind of like rushed together without those moments of groove to really break them up.
And another thing I would have liked to hear is with the lead work, it seems like whenever a lead started, it would always get buried.
Yeah.
And it was also just kind of short sometimes, you know. It had a very Slayer, Kerry King-ish feel to it, but I couldn't hear it that well because it seemed like mix-wise, whenever he would start, it would just get kind of buried in the mix, and I'd
Yeah.
like to hear it a lot better.
Yeah.
There were some slight mix issues too. Like I found like the low vocals almost always came through really well, but sometimes the high vocals would get buried. And it might have to do with that rhythm guitar being so big and heavy, which I mean, I almost don't want to sacrifice it because
No,
that
you
thing
don't want
sounds
to.
good.
It sounds great.
Yeah, dude, keep the tone
Keep
of
it.
the rhythm guitar.
Keep it there.
Ooh.
Now, one of the tracks I did like on here though is Beyond Malice, maybe because I think this is one they let it breathe a little bit. It's a little bit longer of a song. Now, granted, it still kind of has that like a bullet train sort of sound to it, but I like the fact that certain moments were longer on there. And I feel like that's kind of the ideal song length for them because these guys have a lot of ideas and really cool ones. It's just kind of assembling them and making them not sound rushed and just kind of just blasting through each of these songs. This one took its time a little bit. And I mean, overall, this is their debut album, and I mean, I still think it's pretty good. It's just still needs some fine tuning. That's pretty much about it. So overall, I'm gonna give this 3 stars. I think it's a pretty good debut. Still needs some work in some departments. They have the talent. There's no question about that.
Agreed.
That drummer is a
Agreed.
damn madman. And I was exhausted listening to him do all that shit.
He was tired.
But yeah, I think they just need to let these songs breathe a little bit. They can be really suffocating and just over brutal. I mean, and it feels like a fucked up thing to say concerning brutal death, but there's a way to do it and let these songs breathe and still retain every ounce of heaviness. And I want to hear them do it because, again, these guys are killer. We've seen them live.
Yep.
I know they're killer live, and I certainly recommend seeing them
Yep.
once shows are
Once we
insane.
can see things
So yeah, 3 stars. Pretty decent debut. I'm definitely going to check out more, and I'm definitely going to buy this.
I'm going to give this a 3 as well. Of course, like Nick said, I've seen these guys live. They're definitely talented. One of my takeaways was, though, I feel like all their influences, and all killer bands, Suffocation, Aborted, Hideous Divinity, Black Dahlia Murder, the list goes on. It would have been cool to see these guys not so much wear those influences on their sleeve, because I feel like they took all the fast, crazy parts of all these awesome bands, and that's all they stuck with. Like, I wish there would have been just a smidge more groove. Just a smidge, just something to separate it up a little bit, because I feel like they all kind of ran together. And that too, being as the songs were as short as they were, that's not the time when you want everything to run together. You want some dynamic to stand out a little bit, and that's what I could have used a little more of. Still kick-ass album, though.
This is my first hearing of this band, and what I gathered from this listen is they are a band that I think maybe they shorted themselves a little bit on this album, because I think the whole conversation about filling out the album easily could have been solved if they would have taken their time a little bit more on some of these things. So I think that's one of the biggest things we all kind of agreed on, is that as awesome as some of these parts are, we wish they would have stayed, or maybe the groove would have been more prevalent, and that would have filled out the album more and taken care of some of the bullet train issues. But this album is heavy as balls. You bang your neck hard as hell to it, and this is definitely a band in their infancy that's going to continue to grow. So I guarantee more great things are coming out of this camp when they continue to write. And I think this is a good effort. So 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time.
Also, we have finally joined the Patreon world. It is a very cool way for us to try to continue to build our community, build our channel. And as the Patreon grows, we look forward to doing more things like buying a bunch of merchandise and giving it away back to you, and doing all sorts of concert tickets, CDs, blah, 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 you name it. Basically, anything metal we can do to add to this channel, that's exactly what we're going to use this Patreon for, to make it as big as we possibly can. And to anyone who takes the time to look at it, thank you. We will drop the link below.
So with that, we thank you very much for watching, and we will catch you later.
Bye.